Well, I'm here with Luke Priddy for a very special episode of my podcast. Luke, how are you today or tonight?
Doing very well.
What?
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being on. And so you're actually you are in Queens, New York.
That's right. I'm living in Queens, which when people talk about New York is not the first place that comes to mind.
Part of why I want to talk to you about this is because you have experience with being a Udemy instructor, and I would love to hear just kind of intro your Udemy experience for us to get started.
Sure, yeah. So basically, I've been doing courses on Udemy for several years, for about 2 years actually, and I found out about the platform very early on and thought, wow, this is a really powerful thing, because when you buy a course, it's your course. You can go through it at your pace, and instead of it being sort of I need to go to them, it's sort of like it comes to me and I can do it on my own terms. So I thought this is powerful. It took me a while to actually get my head around the enormity of creating a course from scratch. And so I threw out about 3 or 4 ideas along the way, finally came to what I thought was the most valuable thing for English learners, which is what I focus on, which is a pronunciation course, a course on speaking fluency, and then a course on how to think in English. So 3 courses I decided to start with. And basically what I did was I sat down and I just wrote the outlines. So once I had the outlines and I had sort of my head around the project, then it was really a matter of just executing. And technically that execution is hard. I bought a backdrop, I bought a new camera, I played with a lot of different sound equipment. I ended up using actually the microphone I'm using here so that the sound would be really good, because I feel like if somebody's going to sit there and watch me for 3 hours and I'm on camera, if the sound is kind of crackly or peaking often, they're going to tune out pretty quickly. I tune out of YouTube videos that have peaky sound. So I made sure to get all that technical stuff right. And then from there, it was just day after day recording. And it was kind of a slog. But once I got through it, the editing process was clean, because I came up with some shortcuts using claps for editing that made it a lot easier. So I invented this sort of clap code where 2 claps meant one thing, 3 claps meant another. And if I was happy with the take, I would do 3 claps, so that when editing, I could visually edit instead of watching it. So I could see the audio peaks and see it cut, instead of having to go through the whole thing. So it's a lot faster in the editing process.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna try that actually. What gear are you using? What's your basic setup?
Well, so when I filmed my first series of courses, the 3 courses, I was using just a pretty basic DSLR. I was using a Nikon D5100, and it's sort of mid-range DSLR, but pretty good for video. Very, very, very important is that it has a flip-out LCD screen. It was one of the first DSLRs that had the flip-out LCD, because if you can't flip it out and see yourself in reverse, right? It's not going to work. You have to be able to see yourself and how you're framed and what's going on the screen. Right now I'm using a GH4, which is a really great video camera. It does 4K, and I would recommend it as a really great price option now, because it's just a really solid camera for video. It also has the flip-out screen, so that's important.
What's the best advice that you can offer me about making a great Udemy course?
Well, I think that the whole course structure is really important. I think that if it's a compelling structure and each topic feels like, not necessarily it's building on the last, but it feels like there's something very important within each one, and you want to get whatever nugget that is based on the topic, and you know what that nugget is when you see the topic, it's going to make it like, oh, that was great. I can't wait to get the next thing. If I can just give a really quick example to highlight what I think is the most important thing to deal with that particular thing, the tendency to want to tangent a little bit. I tried to record a course I'm working on now with very loose outlines based on past experience. I thought, oh, I've taught similar classes before. I'm going to just try to see if I can record this. And so I wasn't really looking at a concrete outline. I was just following a vague concept. And it was a total disaster.
Oh, no.
I was flying off on tangents, and I couldn't bring myself back. I couldn't focus. I was being repetitive. So then I sat down for 2 weeks, and I just made the most compact, tight outlines that I could, and felt really confident. And now going through them one by one, it's just like nothing. It's just like going through the motions. I mean, you got to put yourself into it. You have
Sure.
But it's so easy, and I can tell that I'm very much on point. There's no waste. I'm not wasting words. I'm speaking freely. I'm not reading a script, but I'm not wasting the student's time. And everything that I say is on some point or another. And hopefully, even though it's a long course, they'll go, yeah, I need that, and they'll be taking notes instead of going, okay, when's this little story going to end?
That's also really great advice to keep on track. And I this is my gift and my curse, is the ability to tangent and follow a thread. It's made for some really interesting conversations in terms of my podcast, but in terms of doing a course, got to stay on point, stay on track. So.
Yeah, I think so. Video is very different than, unless people are in podcast mode. If they're watching a video podcast, then they know they've bought into the experience of watching a continuous feed for 2.5 hours. That they've bought into that concept. But if they're going through a course, they're there to get the nuggets and move on.
Well, nice. Well, Luke, in the spirit of that, I want to thank you for your time and let you move on towards the rest of your evening, and I'll move on to editing this beast.
All right. Well, thanks for the chat. I enjoyed it.